Friends, lovers, hello. Welcome back to the channel. We're here to talk about some books, as per usual. If you're new here, thank you for stopping by. I hope you enjoy your stay. Now you might be asking yourself, Gala, why are you making your reading goals list 2.5 months into the year? And to that I say, this was a long time coming. 2.5 months coming to be exact. I wanted to do this a lot earlier on. I never got around to it, but I thought I'd do it now. We are here today to discuss some reading goals for the year 2025. And if you'll notice, I am severely handicapping myself by starting this in mid-March. So we're going to see how this goes. I've set some interesting and some mildly lofty goals for myself for this year, but I am looking forward to getting into these with you today. Last year, 2024, my only goal for the year was just read over 100 books. And I had never done that before, so I really wanted to hit the triple digits. And I'm proud to say that I did. And I did a whole video talking about every book I read in the year 2024. Do go check that out if you're at all interested. So I thought I'd set some new goals for 2025. And this year, I really wasn't interested in focusing on numbers so much. Some of the goals we'll talk about today are sort of like numbers-based, but they're more to get me into the things I want to be doing. So I was less interested this year in really hitting numbers and more in doing specific things and reading in specific ways for certain types of study that I want to get into. So we're going to talk about all those today. I apologize if it's a bit noisy. I live up in the mountains and it's insanely windy today, so I'm sorry about the noise. And also my cat is running around in the background. She might hop up and say hi at some point. She likes to do that. So without further ado, let's get into this, shall we? So this list was shuffled around. I put them all on the bingo card and just randomized it basically. So the first goal on here is to read the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I've seen the trilogy of films more times than I could count. I watch them all the time, and it's kind of crazy to me that I still haven't read any Tolkien, and I really wanted to read the trilogy last year, and it just wasn't in the cards. I never got around to it, so I really want to read the trilogy this year. And my mother was actually kind enough to send me this really cool box set of the whole trilogy plus The Hobbit, so shout out to my mom. Thanks, Mom. That's really cool of you. So I've got this in my hands now, and I'm really looking forward to finally just reading the trilogy and sharing that with you. So the next on the card is to read the Odyssey, and you're going to see quite a few goals. I think about half a dozen goals on this bingo card pertain to reading ancient Greek literature, and that's partly because it's such a wide gap in my literary understanding. Like, I really haven't read much ancient Greek stuff, and I really want to read more. A certain writing project I'm really slowly working towards has me wanting to read a lot more history, a lot more Greek and Roman history, and just old stuff. So I've got quite a few goals on here that are ancient Greek stuff for the year 2025. I thought it would be good to kind of tackle a lot of the big, important building blocks of Greek text this year and get those under my belt and kind of just move forward with that. And that might be subject to change. Like, if I finish off more of those Greek pieces of writing this year, then I might move on to some other stuff. But there's quite a few things on this card that are related to that Greek style stuff. So the first one is the Odyssey. I'll have to get a copy of that. So the first one on there is the Odyssey. And again, these are randomized. They may not actually be read in the order that we're talking about them today. That's just what came up on the card first. And third on the card, I had reading 20 classics. I read a good amount of classics. And to be perfectly frank, I don't really know what constitutes a classic. You know, like something like the Odyssey, that's obviously a classic. You would probably say the Lord of the Rings trilogy is a classic too. But then I guess it gets kind of dicey, like, do you consider a modern classic a classic? Like, where do you draw the line on what a classic actually means? So I don't really know what my definition of a classic is. It's probably very different than what the definition other folks have in their head is. So I'm just going to kind of take this goal with a grain of salt. Initially, the goal was going to be 10, and then I bumped it up to 15, and then I bumped it up to 20 because I kind of looked at the other things I had on this bingo card already and realized that most of the things on this card actually pertain to reading classics of some sort or another. And I think that number of 20 is going to be pretty easily attainable if I'm trying to accomplish all the goals I have on this card. So I could probably bump this up to 25, but I figured keep it at 20 to not stress myself out if I didn't hit what a classic really means or something like that. So I went with 20, and I guess we'll just see how that goes. Next on the card is to read some Euripides plays, and I kept that so broad and vague because in doing my research of understanding, you know, what are the basics of like reading ancient Greek stuff, it's like, you know, you want to read the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Aeneid, you want to read from Sophocles, Euripides, Aeschylus, right? And most of those writers you can really boil down, like, these are the most important foundational texts from these people. And Euripides was the hard one. I think he had like 18 surviving tragedies, if memory serves, and it seems like the general consensus varies on what are the most important ones or what are the best ones. So I just put this down here as a placeholder for now. I might just decide to pick up some collection of his tragedies and start there and just kind of get into it. I'm not going to leave that one so pigeonholed. I'll let myself see what I actually get into for Euripides, because most of these other ones are more specific. So the next on the list is read one Faulkner and one McCarthy. If you've heard me talking at all in these previous videos, you'll know that I love Cormac McCarthy and William Faulkner, and I made two like sort of joint goals here. I thought they would be fun because Faulkner so heavily inspired McCarthy, and their writing is different but similar in a lot of ways. So I thought it might be fun to make a goal where, you know, I read at least one new book from both of those people, instead of just saying, like, read a Faulkner, because, like, I'll probably do that anyway. I thought I'd make the goal a little more interesting and a little more challenging to make it kind of like, not like a goal of like a two-part read, like I can read these things anytime I want in the year, but I thought it might be fun to sort of pair those together as a goal because they're kind of linked, because I have so much interest in dissecting and discussing how these writers overlap and influence each other. And so in a recent haul video, I actually showed that I recently picked up Faulkner's Light in August and Suttree from Cormac McCarthy, and these probably will be the two books that I read next from these writers, just because they're on the shelf, they're readily available to me, and I'm excited to read them. So those are just a couple options. Results may vary, of course. And next is a similar goal. It's read one George Eliot and one Willa Cather, two other writers that I really, really love. And if you've read either of them, you may understand where this overlap comes from. They both write, or I should say wrote, very introspectively, had incredible, beautiful portraits of people, and their descriptions are just immaculate of person and place and time. George Eliot being in 19th century, really pastoral England, and how religion shaped a lot of people's lives. Willa Cather being in sort of like Western and Southwestern and Midwestern America in the early to mid 20th century, and how people's lives were shaped by sort of pioneer times and like people really moving out west, and how her own life was actually affected in this way and how that affected her writing. And so I think I've actually read like 3 Cathers and 3 George Eliots, just bringing these up as options. Like I have Eliot's Middlemarch on the shelf. I have yet to read this. I don't know that this will actually be the Eliot I read next, just because I feel like I might want to reread some of her earlier stuff that I've already read and kind of prep myself to get into Middlemarch, just because it's such a huge book and I want to get to this when the time feels right. And then for Cather, I've read a couple of books from her, like My Antonia and Death Comes for the Archbishop and The Troll Garden, her early short stories. So I have Sapphira and the Slave Girl on the shelf. This is the only one of hers I own that I haven't read. I don't know that I'm super excited to pick this one up, but I do have it. And honestly, I may just go for rereading Death Comes for the Archbishop. I read this last year and I just positively love this book with all of my heart and soul. So I may end up rereading this or grabbing something different from her instead. So I've had this tea for a really long time called Tulsi Sweet Rose. I used to work at a co-op, and you know, like if any products were damaged, you could just take them home for yourself if you worked there. So I got a lot of cool tea when the boxes would just get damaged in shipments. And this rose tea, I don't drink it a lot because it's really sweet and really strong, and I have to be in the mood for something like rosy like this, but I'm kind of enjoying it today. And I just thought it was funny that the tea bag for the package says stress relieving and magical, if this ever wants to focus. There you go. Next on the bingo card, I put reading 2 Shakespeare plays. And I just kind of put this as like not a super challenging goal for myself. I've only read, I don't know, like 4, 5, 6 Shakespeares in my life, and that's such a huge gap because there are so many plays of his to read. So I just want to read more. The only 2 of his I have on the shelf that I haven't read are Antony and Cleopatra and All's Well That Ends Well. So I may end up reading these 2, or you know, if I acquire any others over the course of the year. I would like to read this guy, and honestly Antony and Cleopatra sounds good because it kind of relates to my interest of study in Greek and Roman lit right now. So these may be the ones, they may not be, but these are the ones I have on my shelf that I have not yet read. And next on the card, I put reading at least 4 historical fictions. And this, again, is me realizing pretty recently how much I love historical fiction and how much more of it I want to read. And that may be, you know, topical to like Greek and Roman stuff, but it may also just branch out into anything I'm kind of interested in. I just found in my little free library copy of Corelli's Mandolin. I didn't know what this book was, but it sounds really interesting, and I think it's about this small Greek island on the eve of World War II. So this sounds cool. I may pick this one up as one of my 4 historical fictions. I may leave it to something else, but I put that goal just because I really want to read more historical fiction. I can't believe how much I've slept on that genre my entire life, and I'm not really like a genre reader. In case you couldn't tell by the diversity of the things I read and share with you on this channel, like I really read a lot of different things. So I've never necessarily been opposed to historical fiction. It's just, I guess I just never picked them up. But now that I started to, I realize I can't get enough. It's such a cool mode of writing when it's done well. So I know another book I really want to read is Umberto Eco's The Name of the Rose, which I think is historical fiction, and I would really like to pick that up as one of my historical fiction reads this year. Next on the list is to read Fire Punch. If you don't know what Fire Punch is, it is a manga by Tatsuki Fujimoto. He is the same person who still currently writes Chainsaw Man. And he has a handful of other one-shots like Goodbye Eri and Look Back, which is like one of my favorite things of all time if you need a manga recommendation. Anyone who's been to this channel before probably knows I love One Piece. It's like my favorite thing of all time, and I really, really enjoy Chainsaw Man and a lot of Fujimoto's other work. The only thing I haven't read by him is this series called Fire Punch. It is an 8-volume work. I have 6 of the volumes on the shelf, and I've kind of just been waiting to read this until I got the last 2, because then I want to really sit down and read the whole series. But I'd really like to read this year, so I'm putting down Fire Punch as a goal. I want to grab those last 2 volumes of the manga and be able to read through this whole thing. I didn't really read any new manga in 2024 because I really wanted to hit that 100 book goal purely on just like literature or like actual like text-based books and not manga. So I read things like One Piece and Chainsaw Man weekly as the new chapters come out, but I didn't read anything like new outside of those series I keep up with in the year 2024, and I really, really want to read Fire Punch. So I'm looking forward to this. Just got to pick up those last 2 volumes and get on this at some point. Next on the list I have is to read Virgil's The Aeneid. And for some reason I have 2 copies of The Aeneid. I'm not really sure how that happened, and I think I actually picked them up in sort of rapid succession to each other because they were both like $1 a piece at like a Goodwill or something. This one I really like the old Dover Thrift covers. I think some of them just have such gorgeous designs, despite not being like really well printed or well formatted books. They kind of like, I don't know, they kind of like even out for me because the covers and like the design are so beautiful that I just kind of like them. And then this was the Robert Fagles Penguin edition of the Aeneid, and I understand that Fagles is a pretty tried and true option for a lot of Greek translations, so this is a cool one to pick up, and I'll probably go for Fagles for a lot of other translations for Greek works that I'm reading this year as well. But again, this is slotting into, you know, just the Greek au revoir that I'm trying to hit this year. Next on the list is to read Don Quixote. It's just a book I've always wanted to read. I don't have a copy, so I'll have to get one. But I'm really interested in a lot of, I guess, postmodern works, and like I've talked about before, what's kind of called by Barthes as the literature of exhaustion. So like Nabokov, Calvino, Borges, like people who were bored or fed up with the traditional structure of that novel and moving into more postmodern structures for themselves. And I know the Cervantes is really like a postmodern structural epic and masterpiece, and it's just something I've always wanted to read, so I do really want to pick that up this year. And next on my list, and this is kind of the only one that isn't like a specific reading goal per se, but it is still a reading goal, is to do a buddy read. I've never done a buddy read before. I've sort of like read the same books as a friend or something like that, and then we reconvene at a later date to talk about it. But I've never really done a buddy read where one person and I like deliberately choose to read a book and do it together, and then we have a full-blown discussion and like don't wait 6 months to talk about the book or something. So this is something I'm excited about, and I figured, like, you know, now that I'm making these videos and just having fun with it, that I can perhaps find people to connect with that may want to read something simultaneously. And I actually already have one person in the comments who it seems like we might be setting up a buddy read together. You know who you are. I'm looking forward to doing that with you. Stay tuned. We'll definitely set that up together. And I will say, this is not a single goal. So if anybody else wants to do a buddy read, please just like let me know in the comments, or like if you want to go to my Goodreads link in the description or in the profile of the channel, please feel free to like hit me up on there and just send me a message, since we can actually communicate a little bit better there than through YouTube comments. I would love to do more than one buddy read. I think it'd be really fun to just start connecting with people in that way. And again, that's kind of why I made this whole channel, is just to talk about books, have fun, and connect with other people over books. So if you want to read a book together, I think that'd be really fun. Let me know. And next is to read the complete plays of Sophocles. So I've read 5 of his plays. He has 7 surviving tragedies out of the many that he wrote. And I've read, I believe, 5 of them. I've read all 3 Oedipus plays. I've read Women of Trachis and Electra. And I've been reading from these Oliver Taplin Oxford World's Classics kind of collections, where he separated the plays between what he called the male tragedies and the female tragedies. So his female tragedy collection had Antigone, Women of Trachis, and Electra in it, and his male tragedies collection has the 2 Oedipus plays, Philoctetes and Ajax, or Ajax. I'm not sure how you exactly pronounce it. So I've technically read 2 of the plays from here, the 2 Oedipus plays, and I haven't read the other 2. But I'm planning to just read this collection of the 4 tragedies, and at that point I will have read those Oedipus plays like 3 times a piece at this point, but they're good to reread, and I want to read the 2 new ones, so like I'm kind of taking this as more of a study once again. And just because I read his translations for the other ones, and these copies like weren't very expensive, I know he's not like necessarily the most well-known or reputable name for these translations of Sophocles, but I kind of just liked his approach to translation and how he chose to separate the volumes into the male and the female, and I guess I like his introductions too, and the way he notates and annotates. So I will probably want to reread Sophocles' tragedies and plays like at a later date in a more like, let's say, reputable translation. But I'm kind of just enjoying these for now, and I have this copy, so I'm gonna finish them out in here. And again, just to kind of continue on that ancient Greek oeuvre. And next, again, continuing on that Greek train, is to read Aeschylus, the Oresteia. I think I'm saying that right. And I actually do have a copy of that, and I believe that's the Fagles translation. It is, yeah. So that's also the Fagles translation. Again, I plan to probably just go with like Penguin Fagles on most of these Greek works, just because they're tried and true. I'm not trying to like reinvent the wheel here, and there may be other translations that people find better for better or worse reasons, different reasons. I'm good with just going with the Fagles translations, especially since I already have, a couple of them on hand. I will probably just grab the Homer works as well in the Fagles, since they're tried and true. Next on the list is to read the Iliad, and that will probably be, I think, the next place I go, or the first place I should go, I'll say, for my Greek reading this year. I understand you want to read the Iliad before the Odyssey, and kind of move forward from there. So I think I want to do those 2, and then slot, like the Sophocles and the Aeschylus and the Euripides and the other stuff kind of in there as I go. So I'm gonna work it from that angle. And I know that Virgil I think he was Roman, right? Virgil wasn't actually Greek, but this is sort of like more a Greek retelling, and it does fit into that Greek ethos of storytelling, and I'm just gonna go with it like that. So you can tell I'm not really an expert, and that's kind of why I want to do this reading, so it is what it is. And last on the list is to read at least 4 Russian authors this year. I love the Russians, and I still feel like there's a really big gap in my understanding of the texts. Like I've never read Tolstoy, I have so many Dostoevskys to read, that there's so much out there that I still haven't sunk my teeth into. So I really, really want to get on more Russians this year. Despite having such a large Greek and Roman goal ahead of me, I still want to keep on top of other classics and other, places and cultures, and Russians are one big one for me. And so I've already read Evgeny Onegin this year, as well as 2 Vladimir Nabokovs, and these were rereads, and the Onegin was new to me. So that's technically 2 writers already, and I will just get at least 2 more already in there. And I grabbed a couple of books off my shelf as potentials for things I might want to read. One of them is Gogol's Dead Souls, and I did read this like in high school. It's been a long time, and I really want to give it a reread because my memory's fuzzy on it, but I just loved it so much. And I've read other Gogol short stories in the past, a couple of them last year, so I really want to get back on this. This is a really big potential read. Another one is Dostoevsky's The Idiot. Again, I have this one on the shelf. I really haven't read enough Dostoevsky, and what I have read needs to be reread, so anything from him would be good to pick up, and I do have this one on hand. And finally is Solzhenitsyn's August 1914. I grabbed this for like $1 in a really cool used bookstore a couple of months ago. I've never read Solzhenitsyn before, and I've just always wanted to. I know he has the Gulag Archipelago and a couple of other really famous works, so I don't know much about any of them. I'm guessing this has to do with World War I, because I'm pretty sure World War I started in August 1914. That if my memory serves, I think so. So I don't know anything about this one, but I really want to read Solzhenitsyn, and I think this is a pretty solid pick. And there we are, friends. That is my 2025 reading bingo card, or really a Bing card, if you will. These are my goals for the year. I'm handicapping myself a little bit by starting in mid-March, but some of these goals have sort of gotten underway here and there, so I think I can do this. I'm not a bingo person in the sense of wanting to just complete a row or a column. I like to make a bingo card and complete the whole card. That's why I went for 16 instead of 25, because I thought it would be a little bit too much to try and make 25 goals for myself. So there are my goals. There you have it. I hope you've enjoyed. Once again, if you have any comments, questions, suggestions for me, please leave them in the comments below. If you'd like to do a buddy read, hit me up in the comments, hit me up on Goodreads. I think that'd be really fun. Yeah, thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.